Yo! Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kingdom Pets channel. Today we're really going to be delving into this area of whether dogs understand emotion and how does knowing that help us relate to them as our companions and pets. So we're really going to be looking into this area of the physiology and really the workings behind the human body as well to really try to undergird all this research that we're going to be looking into very shortly. And also, you might even get a takeaway and understand the age-old question of, do dogs smell fear? Do they? So stay tuned, hit the like buttons, and give me a comment and likes on your highlights and takeaway from this video. So let's get to it. I think one of the areas that we should really look into is man's best friend. When did that term really come about? And how did wild animals, as the wolves, become domestic animals as the common dogs that we have now, the German Shepherds or the Labrador Retriever? You know, the story goes that around 30,000 to 35,000 years ago in Asia, or Southeast Asia more specifically, that the wolves and the wild dogs of those times really developed a symbiotic relationship with the herdsmen or the nomadic people of that region. And over time, they really developed that relationship and trust began to be cultivated, which really turned these wild animals into very neutral animals and not domesticated animals. And that is where the term man's best friend really came from. And as we realize now, studies have shown just as much as we think that animals need us, more specifically dogs, we also need them in our lives because science says that mammals, in terms of dogs, are social creatures, but humans are even more so social than animals. So we really live and thrive in this herd pack kind of environment where we believe the give and take, that you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours.
And if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Wait a minute. Is he coming on to me?
That area, that friendship that we build, that commonality that we have of interactions really builds us up as humans, and that is where the term man's best friend came from.
After all, negotiations make strange bedfellows.
And that is where we feel love for our animals, that we really feel close to them. That relationship that we build is built on what we call emotions. And emotion scientifically is defined as an impulse or secretion of a chemical reaction in the brain that really falls into four areas, but it can be vastly different as well. The brain secretes what we know as oxytocin, dopamine, and also serotonin, amongst other chemicals that really generate these emotions we know as love, these emotions we know as hope, as fear, as anxiety, and even nervousness. And what happens is that a study was done on whether dogs can really understand human emotions, not just based on facial expression, but based on smell. One of the five senses that is most neglected is this area of smell in the humans. Because we have dispositioned it more so towards the animals, we have kind of lost the relevancy of our everyday life and how frequent we use our smell. Smell, although closely related to memory, is also extremely emotive. A lot of dog owners will realize that if they're in a sad mood or if they're really going through some things in their life and they're not just feeling the best or having a very crap day, their dogs usually come sit next to them, give them a cuddle, and make them feel better. But are their dogs really just doing this randomly, or do they actually understand the circumstance of the situation that's going on? One of the interesting facts about humans is that our emotions not only affect our state and how we view the world, but it also changes and it interferes with our chemical composition in our bodies. When this happens, the body secretes enzymes and hormones. One of the ways the body really releases these chemicals is through the skin and the pores in our skins, through our breath, through saliva, urination, and other ways. And what happens is that when we are in close proximity with dogs, because the dog's nose is 300 times or 300 million more times stronger than ours in terms of sensory receptors, humans being at 6 million and dogs being at 300 million or 300, 400 million, they are able to pick up the changes of state, not in terms of emotions, but in terms of our chemical composition in the body. So what happens is that when we are sad, the body releases a certain chemical into the bloodstream that is then released through our skins and through our pores. And then dogs are able to smell that, and they can really understand and make sense of that emotion, and then come to us and be like, hey, Are you alright there? Or if we're feeling depressed, or we're feeling and anxious. A study was done in 2017 October by an Italian researcher named Biagio Di Anelio and his team on the transmission of interspecies chemo signals from humans to dogs, and how do dogs really translate and understand human emotions. Biagio and his team brought in a group of volunteers to watch two set of short films. One was to ignite fear and trepidation within them, and the other was a really happiness, very lovey-dovey kind of movie. And whilst they were watching and their fear began to creep in, they began to sweat. As the volunteers were watching, the sweat produced during the film was collected and then presented to the dogs. These pups had two distinct reactions when smelling these odors. One, the dogs that were presented with this happiness kind of smell were really calm and nurtured, and they were really open to a lot of things. While the dogs that were presented with the sweat glands that had fear and trepidation, their anxiousness rose and their heartbeat began to increase, and a lot of other distinctions were also made. One was that these dogs that smelled fear, their heart rate not only increased, but also they were more intimidated and more in defense when approached by newcomers. And number two, they really began to replicate and mirror that sense of fear that they smelled onto others. So when someone walked into the room, because they were fearful, they were more aggressive and they were more on their attack. While the dogs that were on the happy side were more relaxed and more calm and more approachable. So there you have it on our discussion on whether dogs can understand human emotions. The pituitary gland and the thalamus secrete certain hormones that are detected by dogs and then translated into our emotive state and our behavioral state as well. So yes, dogs can understand human emotions, not only through facial recognition or vocal, but also through our smell. Thanks again for watching the video, and I trust that you have grown in your affection towards animal and that you have learned something new about dogs. Give me a highlight in the comments of what you've learned today, and give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and I'll see you next time.